The parliamentary inquiry probing the fitness to hold office by suspended public protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane resumes today after a week-long break. The inquiry is expected to hear cross-examination by Mkhwebane's legal counsel, Advocate Dali Mpofu, of senior manager in the public protector's office, Nelisiwe Thejane. Later today, another senior manager in that office, Cornelius from the Merwe, will also take the stand. Meanwhile, there's also anticipation that Mpofu will apply for the recusal of the inquiry chairperson Qubudile Dyantyi on grounds that he is biased. For an update, we're joined on the line by our parliamentary reporter Bulelani Phillip. A very good morning to you, Bulelani. Just give us some clarity with regards to Mr. Qubudile Dyantyi. Has that request by Advocate Dali Mpofu been submitted or not?
Well, good morning to you, Desiree, and to the viewers at home. Of course, picking up from where we left off last week on Wednesday, one of the final words that Advocate Dali Mpofu made to the chairperson that they would bring this recusal application against the chairperson because they believe that he's biased. And now we have got some indications that that recusal application will be heard this morning and it will be brought on board by the Mkhwebane's legal counsel. Of course, at the moment, the proceedings were meant to start at 9 o'clock, but we believe that Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane as well as Advocate Dali Mpofu only landed in Cape Town just after 8 o'clock, so they're still making their way to the venue in Parliament. So I believe that as part of what we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks during these testimonies, Advocate Dali Mpofu does tend to actually, even before the proceedings start, want to put matters on record. Hence, I believe that perhaps maybe this recusal application is going to be one of the first items that will be considered. Yes, right?
So two possible deterrents today, that recusal process and the fact that Advocate Mpofu and Advocate Mkhwebane are coming in slightly late. How will this impact the rest of the proceedings for the day?
Well, I mean, obviously the recusal application is something that is probably going to be quite lengthy. And of course, I suspect that the chairperson will also have to seek some legal advice in terms of whether does he accept this recusal application or does he dismiss it. And it does require some legal groundwork. So I suspect that maybe he will need some time to consider it, or alternatively, he might just reserve his judgment and perhaps maybe want to come back at a later stage to deliver his ruling, whether he's going to accept that recusal application or not. Again, the other point that was actually raised last week by some members now against the Advocate Dali Mpofu is that they also want him to be investigated for allegedly breaching the Powers, Privileges and Immunities Act in the sense that he had threatened the chairperson on the day in question, which was last week, Wednesday, and the armed members were saying that Advocate Dali Mpofu should not interfere with the work of members of parliament as that breaches this act that I've just referred to. So again, I would expect that the chairperson may be in some of his preliminary discussions or statements that he will come back and actually give an indication whether he's made a formal application for Advocate Dali Mpofu to be probed by Parliament. Desiree?
So with all of these possible counter accusations, just give us a sense of the mood in the process, just in terms of the appetite to continue.
Well, the foreground matter that I could put on the table is that there is an urgency of this matter being concluded so that we don't get to a point where justice delayed is justice denied. But again, there are some intricacies within the committee because on one end, you have some members of the committee who are accusing and aligning themselves with Advocate Dali Mpofu in the sense that they believe also that the chairperson is also biased towards Mkhwebane and his legal team, and her legal team rather. But on the other hand, there are some members who are actually accusing Advocate Dali Mpofu of being disrespectful to the chairperson, which then does render the decorum of this inquiry quite unpalatable. So at the end of the day, it depends on which side of the coin you're looking at this thing. But I guess the work of the committee has to actually go to its logical conclusion. Desiree.
And just in terms of Nelisiwe, Thejane and Cornelius van der Merwe, are they already ready to take the stance? And is there a chance that they will do it today as scheduled?
Well, that's a question maybe, Desiree, that would be difficult to answer at this stage, given some of the other issues that the committee might consider. The testimonies may be delayed or may be put off at a later date. But of course, the committee has been emphasizing that its current schedule is actually running late, and they actually want to ensure that the evidence leaders actually finish the list of witnesses, which is these two. Those are the last two people that will be testifying under the examinations of the evidence leaders. The chairperson has also been emphasizing that they want the legal team of the Advocate Mkhwebane to also begin, actually bringing their own witnesses, so that the committee can then be able to come to a point where they start deliberating on some of the evidence that have been put forward to the inquiry, and also decide which evidence is going to be accepted and which evidence is going to be refuted before they can come to any recommendation that they make to the National Assembly.
Let's just remind our viewers, just in terms of this process, its origins, and how far it's come, Bulelani.
Well, you'll recall that some 2 years or so ago, the Chief Whip of the DA then, Ms. Natasha Mazoni, had actually made a motion to the House where she was saying that she wants Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane to be probed for her fitness to hold office, given the number of adverse findings that have been found in some of the courts of our land, and also some of the scathing statements that they've made by judges. Of course, the National Assembly took a decision to say that, let us go and proceed with this process. But in between that, the National Assembly then found that, there were no rules that were in place at the time to ensure that the process of removing a head of the Chapter 9 institution in place. So they had to go through that process, and that process then came back, which is similar to that one of an impeachment process of a president. And therefore, before any inquiry can begin, there must be a group of legal experts. In this case, it was 3, including a judge, that will probe whether there is any prima facie case that actually would lead to this inquiry. As we talk today, that inquiry is going on, but of course, Advocate Dali Mpofu, in his earlier statements to this inquiry, is saying that this is not an impeachment inquiry, because you cannot impeach somebody without having found them to have actually been guilty of any offense. So it's quite tricky, Desiree, but as things stand now, we await the work of this committee to be finished to see where it's going